Well, hello class. Now that you've had your reflection on the first um, lecture, I'm going to move on now to talking about norms. And as you probably know, developing norms on a team is very important. That means that the team has to agree on certain rules and principles so that they can be cohesive, they can work well together, and their individual behavior is now manifest into a group activity. So essentially, the norms are established to do a SWOT analysis on the entire team. So if we were to put the development of norms under a microscope, we really have to have individuals bend in some areas and take, to not to manifest being stubborn or pig-headed about certain things. And you have to have others that are able to maybe manifest their talents and take over when things don't seem to be going right. And about, if you talk about a leaderless team, who has control, who has power, who has authority? You don't want to establish a power struggle in the group. You want to respect everyone for what they know. And you want to set, as a group, a certain set of rules or boundaries from a psychological socio standard of what is and what isn't acceptable behavior. Everyone should be in touch with the group norms by identifying the group goals. How can we best get there in the most expedient way and in the shortest period of time? So basically, there are two types of norms, and your book brings that out on page 311. One is maintenance norm, and the other one is a task norm. If you go into your definitions, a maintenance norm is also called an interpersonal norm, and that reflects the interpersonal, psychological, and emotional rules that govern group life and that impact conflict, emotional awareness, and social interactions. Now, the other thing is that when we talk about different types of norms, okay, it's important for us to understand that when norms get manifested, okay, beyond just maintenance, all right, then we are looking at what is the task at hand. A task norm reflects aspects of group life directed towards work and accomplishing goals. So one is more cultural, and the other one is more contextual, where it deals with the facts of how we get there to what we want to accomplish and how we're going to accomplish it. So, having said that, we want to be able to look at, well, the 5 stages of developing norms. Norms, as your book states on page 311, do not develop sporadically, they evolve over time. And there are certain stages, a 5-stage model and a 2-stage model of development. And they also have what's referred to as a product life cycle. That's a predictive pattern of interactions that emerge once the group comes together. So that is the first step and group development. Okay? So we come together and we look at Tuckman's 5-stage model of group development. Teams need to progress through stages of development in order to be successful. So the first step is called forming. That's when we come together. Everyone comes together in their own way, their own values, their own way of doing things. And now suddenly, because of that diversity that I talked about earlier, they have to kind of respect each other, but everyone has their own sets of values and how they think things should be done. So basically, in the forming stage, every member on the team looks at their own capabilities first and what they think they can do maybe better than everybody else. So they start as individuals, and now it really hits the fan because we come to the second stage, which we call the storming stage. This is the greatest opportunity for conflict to arise. So each person on their own turf thinks they can do something better than somebody else because they've experienced it, they know it, they understand it, and what they believe should be what's used for the entire team. And the team at this point really has to get it all out in the open. They're going to argue, they're going to fight, they're going to say, no, you're doing it all wrong. They're going to really go at it. And once it all comes out in the open, now it begins to click. We come to the norming stage. So once we get through the storm, we come to the norm. And the norming stage is that the group all agrees, although maybe not on 100% of everything, but mostly everything, on how they're going to accomplish the goals. They want to know how we begin to lay out the groundwork so that we can reach those goals adequately. So, for the most part, on the maintenance part we talked about earlier, they have to agree on procedures. They can't deviate for that. If they deviate from the procedures, they're not going to be together and they're not going to accomplish their goals once they start norming. So, as your book states, the individual roles now seem to blend into all the other roles in the organization, in the team, and interpersonal dynamics, and I'm saying dynamics and interactions now become manifest. Then, once we all agree on the rules, then we develop the culture, and that is in the performing stage. Now we're really into the methodology of how we're going to do things. And during the performing stage, the group is going to have the ability to take action on their agreed goals that they decided in the norming stage. Their relationships begin to improve. Together, they know how they're going to face obstacles, and they actually build working relationships. So it's important that the group navigates through all of these stages, just like with Maslow's pyramid. Once you complete a stage, you can't go back. Well, once you get into the performing stage, you have had to gone through all the other 3 stages. So once you get to the performing stage, you now begin to accept your individual differences. And now, as your book states, you reserve conflict for tasks rather than emotional issues. There is accepted levels of anxiety, but there's not anger or excessive conflict. And each member of the team has an equal expectation of how to actually get through each and every goal that's been outlined. And then the last stage is, okay, we've done it. We're into the adjourning stage. We've done our performance. We've done what we need to do. And the group norms have been set. And as your book states, it's characterized by the realization that the group itself will come to an end. We've done what we needed to do. And usually at this stage, the group does celebrate. They have this, okay, we've done it, we've pulled together, we've settled our differences, and maybe we'll even stick together for future things. But this Tuckman's 5-stage model is a wonderful model on group development. And the 5-stage model really, as your book states, doesn't fully describe the developmental process, but it really sets the scope and limitation of what the team is able to do. If you use the 2-stage model, okay, that is going to give you a better description of how we develop the norms and relationships to setting deadlines and what are the limitations or what we call the project constraints. Okay, just absorb that for a minute. If you go to figure 9.2 in your book, we're going to talk a little bit about the 2 stages of group development. And you could see in your, I believe this is on page 313, you could see in figure 9.2 the punctuated equilibrium model of group development. On your vertical stage, you have time. On your, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. On your horizontal stage, I said it right. In your horizontal stage, did say it right, you have time. In your vertical stage, you have performance. And if you look at the 2-phase project on the grid, okay, phase 1 on project start is usually at low performance, and phase 2 upon project completion, you're at high performance. Where you actually transition is at your midpoint. So let's talk about that a little bit. When you go to page 313 in your book, when you go to the decision-making process as a group, you generate a lot of different choices, and then you're ready to take action. So decision-making is going to require the group to coordinate among all group members to finish their work, to learn, just like what we talked about in the learning organization, and thereby eventually accomplishing goals. So you can do group decisions face-to-face or virtually, and that's all like we're doing now. We're mediating by technology our differences. So the 3 decision-making processes here, brainstorming, the group gets together, comes up with a whole bunch of ideas, the nominal group technique, and the Delphi group technique. So that's what I am going to finish up right now. and ask you to reflect for about 2 minutes. I haven't cut out yet, I'm still on. Okay, the important thing about brainstorming is that there's no criticism on anyone that comes up with an idea, no matter how good or how bad you think the idea is. You're looking at things with an open mind. The next thing is similar to brainstorming. It's the nominal group technique. You generate an idea or a solution to a problem, and each member works independently rather than face to face, and then they come together based on what they've come up with, as long as all of the members in the group understand the issues at hand. And they refine what they've come up with, and they play on each other's idea to come up with the best idea, very much like the critical method. And then finally, the Delphi technique, also on page 314. And that provides a more structured alternative to brainstorming than the nominal group technique. This would involve more direct interaction from the group leader. The group leader collects the ideas, distributes them to the group, and then collects a response through some type of questionnaire. But this works well, as your book states, the Delphi technique, when people are geographically distanced. But you still don't have the interaction among members. So the Delphi technique is an idea-generated technique where the leaders collect ideas, distributes the ideas to the group, and collects a response, often through a formal questionnaire. And you can find this information in your glossary of terms. Okay, please reflect on phase 2 on this video for about 10 minutes.